It was the first day of school, and everyone looked fresh, clean, and excited. Students wore polished shoes, brand new backpacks, and crisp uniforms. The school building stood tall with pride, its flag waving in the morning breeze. Parents stood beside their children, fixing collars, checking lunchboxes, and snapping photos. But among the shiny shoes and bright eyes, there was one figure who didn't belong. A small girl, around 11 years old, stood quietly near the school gates. Her clothes were worn out, full of patches, and 2 sizes too big for her thin frame. Her shoes had holes in the front, and her bag was an old cloth sack. Students passed by and whispered. Some giggled openly. "Is she here to beg?" one boy said. "Maybe she got lost," laughed another. A group of girls passed by and covered their mouths, pretending to cough. "Ugh, what's that smell?" one said, and they all ran off, giggling. But the girl didn't react. She simply looked at the school flag and stood still, her face expressionless. Her name was Amina. No one knew where she had come from. No one had seen her name on the admission list. Yet here she was, quietly walking toward the school office. The receptionist frowned. "Yes, can I help you?" Amina pulled out a small, folded paper from her pocket and handed it over without speaking. The woman opened it and read the handwritten note. Her eyes widened. "Wait here," she said sharply, getting up from her chair and rushing to the principal's office. Inside the principal's office, the woman placed the note on the desk. "Sir, you need to see this." The principal, Mr. Rahman, took the paper and read it. His hand slowly moved to his chin. "Where is the girl now?" he asked. "Outside, sir." Mr. Rahman walked out and spotted Amina standing beside a dusty water cooler. Students stared as the principal approached her. "Come with me," he said gently. Without hesitation, Amina followed him into his office. "Do you understand Urdu?" he asked. She nodded. "Do you know who wrote this letter?" Another nod. "Do you have any documents?" She shook her head. Mr. Rahman stared at the note. "Again, I will admit you to this school, free of cost. Uniform, books, food, everything will be arranged." His staff looked confused but didn't question him. No one knew what was written in that note, but the principal had made his decision. That day Amina was given temporary clothes from the lost and found cupboard. She sat in class 6B, where the students immediately noticed her again. "Hey, Rag Girl is in our class now," someone whispered. A boy threw a pencil at her. Another girl pushed her bag off the bench, but Amina didn't cry. She didn't even flinch. She stared at the blackboard and quietly wrote everything the teacher said. When lunch break came, Amina pulled out her lunch plain rice wrapped in newspaper. She sat alone under a tree, while others laughed and shared burgers and snacks. A group of students walked past and dropped a half-eaten sandwich near her feet. "You can eat this too," a boy smirked. But she didn't pick it up. Suddenly, one of the teachers, Miss Fatima, came over. She placed a small steel lunchbox in front of Amina. "This is for you," she said. Amina looked up in surprise. "Eat properly," the teacher added, smiling. Inside was warm lentils and bread, simple, but fresh and full. Amina ate silently, her eyes moist. When she opened her cloth bag to keep the empty box, something fell out. A black, old notebook. On its cover was an army logo. She quickly picked it up and tucked it inside, but not before a boy saw it. "Why do you have army stuff?" he asked loudly. "Is your father a soldier?" Everyone turned to look. Amina didn't answer. She just stood up, picked her bag, and walked away. That night, Amina sat on her mattress in a small one-room home. A candle flickered beside her. She opened the notebook and stared at a picture glued to the last page. It was a photo of a young soldier in uniform, smiling. Her eyes stared at it for a long time before she kissed the page and closed the book. Then she lay down and hugged her bag. Outside, the wind blew softly. The next morning, something strange happened. A military jeep stopped outside the school gate. 2 soldiers stepped out and walked to the office. Everyone gathered around, curious. The receptionist ran to call the principal. Inside the office, the soldiers handed a sealed envelope to Mr. Rahman from command headquarters, one of them said. The principal opened it and read silently. His hands trembled slightly. He looked up at the soldiers. "She's in class," he whispered. "Let her remain there. We will be back soon," one soldier said. Then they turned and left. Meanwhile, Amina sat in class, solving a math problem. The teacher paused and looked at her. "Amina," she said softly, "can you stay after class?" The children giggled. "Ooh, someone's in trouble," they whispered, but Amina didn't react. After the bell rang, Amina walked to the teacher. "Come," Miss Fatima said, and led her to the library. In a quiet corner, she handed Amina the lunchbox again. Then she sat beside her. "Tell me something," she said. "That army notebook you carry, was it your father's?" Amina looked down. "Yes," she whispered. "Where is he now?" A long silence. Then, Amina said, "Gone." The teacher touched her hand gently. "You're very brave," she said, "but you don't have to carry it all alone." Amina looked at her, and for the first time, smiled, slightly. But outside the library window, someone was watching. One of the schoolboys who had been teasing Amina had followed them and seen the notebook again. That evening, when the class was empty, he sneaked in and opened her desk. There it was, the black army notebook. He grabbed it and ran out. The next day during assembly, the boy came forward and waved the notebook in front of everyone. "Look what our hero girl has," he shouted. "Army files." The crowd laughed. But then something unexpected happened. The security guard who stood near the school gate turned sharply. He rushed forward, grabbed the notebook, and stared at it. His face turned pale. "Where did you get this?" he asked Amina. She was silent. He opened the last page and saw the photo. His hands began to shake. "This man," he whispered. "This man saved my life." Everyone froze. The laughter died. The students looked around, confused. "He was your father?" the guard asked, his voice cracking. Amina nodded slowly. The guard stepped back, straightened his uniform, and saluted. The students didn't laugh again that day. The boy who had taken the notebook stood silently, guilt spreading across his face. But the story didn't end there, because that evening, the school principal received another letter. It had no name, no return address, just a symbol on the back, an eagle holding a sword. He opened it carefully, and his eyes widened once again. "Watch her closely," the letter said. "She carries more than memory, she carries a promise." The principal placed the letter in his drawer and looked out the window where Amina sat alone under the tree, watching the sunset, and far away, across the city, a man in a dark office stared at a computer screen showing Amina's photo. He picked up a phone and made a call. "She's been found," he said. The person on the other end replied, "Then activate the next step." Amina's days at the school were no longer silent, but they weren't peaceful either. The students who used to laugh at her had gone quiet, not out of kindness but confusion. They now whispered behind her back, "What's her story? Why did the security guards salute her? Is her father really someone important?" Amina ignored them all. She came to class, took her seat, opened her notebook, and stayed silent. But inside, her heart was a storm. The notebook that once gave her comfort now felt heavier in her bag. Every time she saw the soldier's photo, her throat tightened. It wasn't just a memory, it was unfinished business. The day after the notebook incident, Miss Fatima invited Amina to her home. "Just for tea," she had said. "And I want to give you something." Amina had never visited a teacher's house before. She walked through clean streets and quiet homes until she reached a simple house with potted plants on the doorstep. Miss Fatima welcomed her warmly. Her house smelled of jasmine and fresh roti. Amina sat nervously on a floor mat while Miss Fatima poured tea and placed a steel lunchbox in front of her. "For you," she said. "Eat while I find something." Amina opened the box and found warm rice, lentils, and a sweet roti folded in foil. Her eyes lit up, and she began eating slowly, carefully. Miss Fatima returned with a dusty wooden box. She opened it gently and pulled out a worn envelope. "This belonged to my brother," she said. "He served in the Northern Hills." Amina looked at the envelope. It had army stamps and a Red Cross mark on it. "He never returned," Miss Fatima said. "But I kept his things. Maybe it's time someone else keeps something that matters." She handed the envelope to Amina. Inside were faded photographs, an old army badge, and a hand-drawn map. Amina looked at the badge carefully. It was similar to the one she carried, but older, scratched. She reached into her bag and took out her own badge. They placed both badges side by side. They matched perfectly. Miss Fatima's hands trembled. "This can't be a coincidence," she whispered. "These are from the same regiment." Amina nodded. "My father never told me his full story," she said. "Only that he had to leave one day to keep a promise." Miss Fatima stared at the badge. Maybe that promise wasn't just about war. Maybe it was about you. The next morning, Amina returned to school with both badges in her bag. But something felt different. As she walked in, she saw two men in suits talking to the principal. They looked serious. One had an earpiece, the other, a black folder. When they saw her, they paused their conversation. One of them nodded slowly. The principal followed her. With his eyes, something had changed. During science class, a commotion broke out in the hallway. Everyone ran to the windows. Outside, a military truck had pulled up. Soldiers in camouflage uniforms stepped out. They weren't carrying weapons, but their faces were stern. Amina's heart pounded. She clutched her notebook tightly. A loudspeaker announced, "All students proceed to the ground for emergency drill." The teacher herded everyone outside. On the ground, students stood in lines, murmuring. The soldiers began demonstrating safety positions and emergency procedures. But as they talked, one of them scanned the crowd. His eyes landed on Amina. He whispered something to his officer. After the drill, as students walked back, Amina was asked to stay behind. A soldier approached her, soft in tone, but firm in voice. "You are Amina?" She nodded. "We were told to give this to you." He handed her a small brown envelope. No stamp, no name, just a symbol. The same eagle and sword from the first letter. Amina opened it slowly. Inside was a single sentence. "Your father's mission is still alive." Her hands trembled. She looked up, but the soldier had already turned and walked away. That night, Amina couldn't sleep. She lay on the floor mat, staring at the ceiling. The note played in her mind again and again. What did it mean? Her father was gone. What mission? And why was she being watched now? She sat up and opened the badge box again. She ran her fingers over the map Miss Fatima had given her. One mark caught her eye, a symbol drawn beside a mountain path, the same eagle. Below it were 3 letters, OPS. She flipped to the last page of her father's notebook. There was a faint pencil mark. OPS fails if she's found. She gasped. The message wasn't random, it was a warning. She wasn't supposed to be here. The next day Amina skipped school for the first time. She took the map and the notebook and walked through the old part of the city, narrow lanes, broken shops, and secret corners. She was looking for a shop her father once mentioned. Suleiman's Antiques, he had said. He knows more than he shows. After hours of searching, she found it. A small shop with broken furniture and clocks that didn't tick. An old man with white beard and sharp eyes sat inside, polishing a radio. Amina stepped in quietly. "I need help," she said. The man didn't look up. "Everyone does," he said, "but not everyone comes with that notebook." Amina froze. "You know this." He finally looked at her. "I know your father," he said. "He saved my life once." Amina's voice shook. "Where is he?" The man paused. "Gone, but not dead." Amina's heart skipped. "What do you mean?" He stood up and pulled out a box from under the counter. "Before he disappeared, he left this with me. Said only his daughter should see it." He handed her a small steel case. She opened it, slowly. Inside were 2 things, a torn photo of a young girl herself and a letter. "Amina, if you're reading this, then I'm either dead or the world believes I am. What I left behind wasn't just memories, it was a code. Find it. Use it and never trust uniforms without names." Her hands shook. The old man looked at her kindly. "He knew they would come for you. That's why he stayed hidden." "What do I do now?" Amina asked. "Return to school, but keep your eyes open. Not all friends wear smiles, and not all enemies carry guns." Back at school, the air felt heavy. Miss Fatima looked at her with concern. "Are you okay?" she asked. Amina nodded. "I just needed answers." The teacher nodded slowly. "You may not like all of them." That day, Amina found something unusual in her bag. A small black chip. No note, no name, just a tiny memory card. She looked around, no one had seen her find it. She tucked it in her pocket. That night, she went to a small photocopy shop near her house. The shop owner, a kind man named Imran, let her use his old computer. Just for schoolwork, he smiled. Amina plugged in the chip. A folder popped up. Inside were 3 videos. She clicked the first one. It was a shaky recording of a battlefield. Soldiers running, gunfire, smoke. Then her father appeared on the screen, wounded, bleeding, but carrying a child in his arms. The child was her. The second video showed a secret meeting, men in military clothes arguing. Her father slammed a file on the table. "You're hiding. War crimes," he shouted. The third video was corrupted only. A few seconds played. It showed a map, coordinates, and one word in red. Expo. Amina's head spun. Her father hadn't just died in war. He had discovered something they tried to bury. As she left the shop, a black car parked across the street turned its headlights on. Someone inside was watching her. And in a government building across the city, the man with the earpiece typed a single line on his computer. "The girl has accessed the chip." Amina knew the moment she walked out of the photocopy shop that her life had changed again. The videos she had seen were not ordinary. They held secrets too dangerous to understand in just one night. Her father had risked his life not just to save others, but to reveal something no one was supposed to know. She looked behind her. The black car that was parked across the street had its engine running now. Its headlights were on, but no one stepped out. She gripped the small chip in her fist and walked faster. Her street was quieter than usual. A street dog barked in the distance. Amina's heart raced. She turned down an alley instead of going straight home. She had used that alley many times to avoid traffic. Tonight, it felt darker than ever. Halfway through, she heard footsteps behind her, slow, steady, heavy. She didn't turn. She simply ran. Her feet slapped against the ground. Her breath sharp in the cold night air. She burst out of the alley and into her lane. Her home was in sight, small, broken, but safe. As she entered, she slammed the door and locked it. She leaned against it, breathing fast. The footsteps didn't follow. Whoever was behind her had stopped. Inside, her grandmother looked up from the mat, where she was reading an old newspaper, by candlelight. "Where were you?" she asked. Amina didn't answer. She just walked to the far corner, sat on the floor, and clutched the chip tightly. Her grandmother studied her face. "You look like your father when he came home from his last mission," she said softly, eyes full of secrets. Amina didn't speak for the rest of the night. She lay awake, thinking. The second video, the one where her father slammed the file on the table, kept playing in her head. He had said something about war crimes. But what kind? Who was he arguing with? And who had sent her the chip? She had no answers, only questions. But she knew one thing: someone was watching her now. She couldn't go back to being silent. The next morning, Amina returned to school like nothing had happened. But everything had. The students still stared, but now with fear more than mockery. The notebook incident had changed everything. Even the teachers treated her differently. But it was Miss Fatima who noticed the shift first. During lunch, she walked over and sat beside Amina. "You're quieter than usual," she said. "I didn't think that was possible." Amina smiled faintly. Sometimes silence protects more than speech, she replied. Miss Fatima nodded. Your eyes are asking questions. Ask them out loud when you're ready. Then she stood and walked away. After lunch, as Amina walked back to class, she heard whispers from the teacher's room. The door was half open, she slowed down. Inside, 2 teachers were speaking to a new substitute instructor. Her name's Amina, one of them said. Strange girl. There's something going on around her. The other nodded. Did you know military people came to school again last week? Asking about her, the substitute leaned closer. Orders came from higher up. She's to be protected, but no one knows why. Amina stepped back silently and walked away. So even the teachers were being watched. During the last period, the classroom door opened suddenly. The principal entered. Amina, come with me, he said. The students froze. Amina stood up and followed him without a word. They walked past the corridor and through the staff area. But instead of his office, he led her to the library. It was empty. Dust floated in the afternoon light. He pointed to a seat. She sat. He closed the door and locked it. Do you trust me? He asked. I don't know. Amina replied truthfully. He nodded. Fair. I wouldn't either if I were you. But listen carefully. Your father? He was a man of truth. That's dangerous. In our world, Amina's heart raced. You knew him. The principal looked down. We trained together. Different paths later, but we stayed in touch. He told me if anything ever happened to him, someone might come for you, to silence you, or use you. Why? She asked. Because of what he saw, what he recorded. He found out about an operation coded Black Valley, a mission gone wrong. Soldiers sent without proper orders. Civilians caught in crossfire. It was supposed to be hidden forever. Your father tried to speak out. They called him a traitor. Amina's eyes burned. He wasn't. I know. But truth doesn't survive in locked rooms. The principal opened a drawer behind the library desk and pulled out a folder. He slid it across to her. This was given to me 2 years ago. I never opened it. I was afraid. But now it's time. Amina opened it slowly. Inside were photos, black and white, blurry, real. Villages destroyed, bodies covered in blankets. An army vehicle with its number plate scratched out. And then, picture of her father, handcuffed, being dragged by 2 officers. Her hands trembled. They took him, she whispered. The principal nodded. They said he disappeared, but I think he's alive. Somewhere off-grid, hiding from the people who tried to silence him. Maybe waiting for you to finish what he... Couldn't Amina looked at the photos again? What is Black Valley? The principal's voice dropped. An operation that never officially happened. That's the danger. If you try to talk about it, they'll say you're lying. But, if you prove it, they'll come after you. Amina put the folder in her bag. I won't stop. I didn't think you would. That evening Amina didn't go home. She went to Suleiman's antique shop again. This time she asked him straight, what is Black Valley? His face changed. You saw the videos, he asked. She nodded. He closed the shop shutters. I was there. Not in the valley, but near it. I heard the explosions. I helped bring in wounded soldiers, but none of them were allowed to speak. One died in my arms, whispering about orders that never came. He reached under the counter and pulled out a key. There's a safe house. Your father built it years ago. If you want real answers, go there. He handed her a note with coordinates. Amina took a bus the next day. The ride was long, through narrow roads and hill paths. She traveled alone, with only her bag and her courage. She followed the map and reached a small village near the mountains. Hidden among the rocks was a small stone house, covered in vines and dust. She pushed open the door and stepped inside. The place was quiet, abandoned but not empty. A stack of journals lay on the floor, army rations, a cracked photo frame of her father holding a baby her. She sat and began reading the journals. They were filled with entries, dates, names, code words, timelines, and one phrase repeated again and again. The girl is the message. Suddenly, a sound outside. A shadow moved past the window. Amina froze. Someone had followed her and in a black van parked at the foot of the mountain. A voice crackled on the radio. Target is inside the safe house, awaiting orders. The air in the safe house felt thick. Amina crouched by the window, her breath slow, her eyes alert. She had seen the shadow move. Someone was outside. Her heart pounded in her chest like a war drum. She reached for her bag, pulled out the old army badge, and clutched it tightly. The place had no electricity, no phone signal, and no neighbors for miles. If someone had followed her here, it was not by accident. They knew. Slowly, Amina moved across the room, careful not to make a sound. She crouched beside the door and listened. Footsteps soft but close. She looked around the room for something she could use. A broken wooden chair, a rusted fire poker, and a heavy metal box. She picked up the poker and held it in her hand, shaking. Another shadow passed the window. Then silence. Suddenly, the door creaked. Amina raised the poker. The door opened just an inch, and a voice whispered, "It's me." She didn't recognize it at first. The voice repeated, "Miss Fatima, don't hit me." Amina froze. What? She rushed to the door and pulled it open. It was indeed Miss Fatima, looking scared, sweaty, and out of breath. "What are you doing here?" Amina whispered. Miss Fatima stepped inside and closed the door behind her. I followed you. Why? Because someone else was already following you. Amina backed away. You knew I came here. I saw you board the bus. I knew this wasn't a normal school trip. Miss Fatima took out a folded piece of paper from her coat pocket. This arrived at my house this morning. No sender. Number 2. Stamp justice. She handed it to Amina. Amina opened the paper. Inside was a printed photo, one of the same images she had found in the principal's folder, her father in handcuffs. Below it, typed in red letters, if she finds the same, eliminate the trail. Amina's hands trembled. What does that mean? She asked. Miss Fatima replied quietly. It means whoever's watching you is ready to erase everything, even you. They both sat down on the dusty floor. Miss Fatima looked around the room. What is this place? She asked. My father's safe house, Amina whispered. He kept records here. Names, places, maps, truths no one wanted to hear. Miss Fatima's eyes scanned the stacks of journals and loose pages. Then, we need to leave, she said. If they followed you here, they'll burn this place to the ground. Amina stood, still holding the badge. We can't leave without taking the proof. Together, they began packing the most important papers into Amina's bag, files with names, locations, photographs, maps, handwritten notes, even copies of old orders. They moved quickly, silently, every creak of wood under their feet sounding louder than it should. Then came a noise from outside. A vehicle. Not just one. 2. They peeked through the curtains. 2 black jeeps had arrived. Men in dark clothes stepped out. No badges, no markings. They're not from the army, Miss Fatima whispered. No, Amina said. They're from the people who erased my father. They heard footsteps approaching the house. The front door rattled. A voice called out, open the door, now. Miss Fatima grabbed Amina's hand and pulled her toward the back. There was a narrow crawl space under the house, once used for storage. They slipped inside just as the front door crashed open. The dark crawl space, Amina and Miss Fatima watched through the wooden slats. The men stormed in, searched the room, tore through the shelves. She was here, one of them said. We need to destroy everything. Burn it. They poured liquid from a can all over the papers and floor. The smell of petrol filled the air. Amina bit her lip to stop herself from crying out. One of the men lit a match, but just before he dropped it, a loud voice called out from outside. Put that out. Everyone froze. A figure in a military uniform stood at the door. The man stepped in. He had 3 stars on his shoulder. His voice was deep, calm, powerful. What exactly are you doing here? He asked. Following orders, one of the black-dressed men replied. From whom? The officer demanded. Classified. The man replied. Not anymore. Behind the officer, more soldiers appeared this time, real ones. Badges, ranks, weapons. Put down the match, the officer ordered. The man hesitated. I said, drop it. The officer roared. The match fell to the floor and fizzled out. Amina and Miss Fatima watched silently as the group of black-dressed men were handcuffed and led outside. The officer stayed behind, looking around the room. You can come out now, he said suddenly. Loud and clear. They froze. He turned and looked directly at the crawlspace. I know you're under there. Miss Fatima pushed open the crawlspace door and climbed out. Amina followed, her face pale but calm. The officer studied Amina for a long moment. You're his daughter, he said. You knew my father. I fought beside him. He saved my life during the Black Valley mission. Amina stepped closer. Why did they try to erase him? Because truth scares people. It can end careers, bring shame to medals. Your father uncovered a secret so big, even generals got nervous. Is he alive? She asked. The officer's eyes flickered. No. But his messages. Amina reached into her bag and pulled out the files. These need to be seen by the world. He nodded. They will be. He took a file from her and opened it. His face darkened. This will change everything. Miss Fatima stepped forward. Then help us. The officer looked at both of them. Come with me. You're not safe here anymore. They rode in the back of an army vehicle for hours. Through the hills and highways. Amina stared out the window, thinking of her father. She had his eyes. People always said. Now, she hoped she had his courage too. They arrived at a military base, guarded and silent. Inside, they were given a private room. The officer returned with tea and 2 sealed envelopes. These are court orders, he said. Once we show this evidence to the board, investigations will begin. Amina opened her envelope. Inside was a letter addressed to her, handwritten, faded. If you are reading this, it means you found the safe house. Good. That means you're ready to speak the truth, ready to face the silence. No matter what happens, never stop. It was signed. Major Harize. Your father. Tears filled her eyes. I miss him, she whispered. I know, the officer said. We all do. The next day, a press conference was arranged secretly. Amina and Miss Fatima sat in the back room while military officers discussed the files. Faces grew tense. Names were whispered. The word Black Valley echoed again and again. Finally, the officer returned. His face was unreadable. They've agreed, he said. Amina stood. To what? To reopen the case? To publish the truth. And to clear your father's name. A wave of emotion hit her. For the first time, her father wouldn't be called a traitor. He would be honored. The officer saluted her, but before they could speak more, a message came through the officer's radio. His face changed. What is it? Amina asked. He looked at her seriously. Someone has leaked your location. What do you mean? Someone wants to stop you before the truth becomes public. Miss Fatima stood, alarmed. We need to leave. But the officer shook his head. Too late. They're already here. In the distance, alarms began to sound. A voice echoed through the base speakers. All units, prepare for lockdown. Hostile intrusion detected. And deep in the shadows beyond the base, a black drone hovered silently in the air, watching everything. The sound of the base alarm echoed through the halls like thunder. Red lights flashed across the corridors. Soldiers rushed in formation, locking gates and taking positions. Amina stood frozen beside Miss Fatima, her eyes wide. The officer who had promised to protect her quickly stepped forward. Stay close to me, he said. We'll get you to a safer room. They ran down a side corridor as the base went into full lockdown. The officer spoke into his radio. Hostile drone sighted. Possible breach in perimeter? Unknown sender? The voice on the other end replied, Understood. Secure the asset. Repeat, secure the girl. Amina looked at Miss Fatima. We're the target, she said quietly. Miss Fatima nodded, her face pale but determined. They know we brought the truth, that's why they're panicking. They were taken to a steel-reinforced room, deep, underground. It had no windows, one entrance, and cameras in every corner. Inside was a screen displaying satellite footage. A black drone hovered above the basin marked, fast, and scanning. One soldier said, This isn't military. It's a private weapon. Maybe mercenaries. The officer paced. They're desperate. Someone high up must be scared that this evidence will go public. Amina pulled the file from her bag and held it tightly. Let them come, she said. We won't stop. Suddenly, the screen flashed. The drone had dropped something small, fast, a metallic cylinder. It landed outside the base entrance. Bomb, one soldier asked. Possible EMP, said another. The base went dark for 3 seconds. Every screen, every light. Then power returned. Flickering shut the main gate. Someone shouted, but it was too late. Outside, black SUV sped through the gate before it could close. Inside the vehicle were masked men, fully armed. The officer turned to Amina. We have to move now. He pressed a button on the wall. A hidden door slid open, revealing a narrow underground tunnel. This leads to a military outpost 2 kilometers away. Take it, I'll delay them. No, Amina said. You'll get killed. He placed a hand on her shoulder. Your father once said you would be stronger than him. He was right. Now go. Miss Fatima grabbed Amina's hand. Come, we can't waste time. They entered the tunnel. The officer closed the door behind them. As they ran, Amina heard gunfire from behind. Her heart pounded. Her legs ached, but she didn't stop. The tunnel was cold and dark, lit only by emergency lights. Every 20 feet, the sound of their footsteps echoed endlessly. Amina turned to Miss Fatima. He'll survive, right? Miss Fatima didn't answer. They reached the end of the tunnel after nearly half an hour. It opened into a small concrete room with an old radio set, a map, and a water canister. A young soldier waited inside. He looked shocked to see them. You're the girl, he whispered. Amina nodded. He pointed to a hidden path through the woods. Follow this. It leads to a helipad. A chopper is waiting. It'll take you to Islamabad. The file must reach the court. What about him? Amina asked. We're trying to contact him. But the base went silent. Amina didn't want to leave. She looked back at the dark tunnel. He stood up for my father. Now he's fighting alone. We'll send backup, the soldier promised. But you must go. Miss Fatima pulled her forward again. Your father wanted you to live. That means escaping when you must. They walked through the woods, quiet, dense, and full of the sound of wind and rustling leaves. Every noise made them flinch. After an hour of walking, the trees cleared, revealing a helipad. A green army helicopter waited, blades slowly spinning. As they approached, a soldier stepped forward. Amina. Yes, he saluted. Orders received. You're being transported to high command. The file is to be handed over directly. She held the bag tighter and climbed in as the helicopter lifted off. Amina looked down at the forest below, then further in the distance, toward the base they had escaped. She closed her eyes and whispered, Please be alive. During the flight, Miss Fatima took out a folded page from her pocket. I didn't show you this before, she said. I found it inside one of the journals. Amina unfolded it. It was a hand-drawn sketch and old map, showing troop movements, supply lines, and at the center, a red circle labeled Black Valley, unreported site. Below it, written in neat handwriting, Do not let them bury this. Tears welled in Amina's eyes. He knew everything. He planned everything. He was preparing me. Miss Fatima nodded. He knew one day you'd be the only one left to tell the truth. The helicopter landed on the rooftop of a government building in Islam. Waiting for them were senior army officers, 1 civilian judge, and 2 national reporters. Amina stepped out and faced them with the file in hand. A general stepped forward. You have something that belongs to history. Amina looked at the file, then at the crowd. No, sir. This belongs to the people. She handed it over. That evening, news channels broke the story. Black Valley operation, files reveals civilian deaths, military cover-up, and one soldier who tried to tell the truth. A picture of Major Harris appeared on every screen. Then, for the first time, the government announced a formal investigation. But Amina wasn't celebrating yet. She sat quietly in a side room, watching the TV, holding her father's badge. Miss Fatima sat beside her. Suddenly, a call came through. The officer who had helped them was alive. Injured but safe. Amina smiled for the first time in days. He made it, she whispered. Later that night, while looking through one of her father's torn notebooks, she found one last message. Hidden in the back cover, a sentence scribbled in pencil, almost erased. The uniform was never my pride. You are. She held the notebook to her chest, eyes full of tears. Outside, camera. Lights flashed. The world now knew the truth, but not everyone was happy. In a hidden building far from the city, a group of men sat around a table, watching the news. One of them turned off the TV. We underestimated the girl, he said. Another replied, then let's not make that mistake again. The room fell silent. Then a third man asked, do we shut it down? The answer came coldly, no, we make her disappear. Rain fell heavily on the rooftops of Islamabad, making the city look like it was crying. Inside a government guest house, Amina sat on the edge of her bed, her father's badge pressed tightly in her hand. Miss Fatima stood near the window, watching the road below. You haven't slept in 2 days, Fatima said gently. I can't, Amina whispered. I feel like something big is still coming. She wasn't wrong. There was a knock at the door. An officer entered, his face serious. Ma'am, the Prime Minister wants to meet you. In private, no cameras, no press. Amina looked confused. Why private? He hesitated. He says he has something important to show you. Miss Fatima stepped forward. I'm coming with her. The officer paused, then nodded. All right, both of you. But no phones, no recordings. They were driven to a quiet side building near the parliament. No flags, no guards outside. Strange. A man in a gray suit met them at the door. This way, please. They followed him down a long hall, then into a small, dimly lit room. A single man sat inside. The Prime Minister. He looked older than on TV, more tired. His eyes were heavy. Come in, he said. Sit down. Amina sat. Miss Fatima remained standing behind her. The Prime Minister spoke slowly. You caused a storm, young lady. A necessary one, but dangerous. Amina didn't reply. He opened a drawer and placed an old metal box on the table. It was rusted, marked confidential. Do not open without clearance. He opened it. Inside were photographs, letters, and an old military medal. He pushed them toward Amina. Your father was a brave man, but also a marked one. He knew something about Operation Black Valley that not even I was told until now. Amina picked up one photo. It showed her father, younger, standing with another officer smiling. The other man had a scar down his cheek. That's Colonel Aslan, said the Prime Minister. He was your father's closest friend, and the one who betrayed him. Amina's hands trembled. What? The Prime Minister nodded. He changed the mission orders, shifted the troops. The attack that killed civilians, it was his doing. Your father tried to stop it when he refused to sign the false report. Aslan had him removed. Silently, no court-martial, no press. Miss Fatima clenched her fists. So it was all planned. Yes, he said quietly. And now Aslan is back, working for private military groups. He sent the drone that attacked the base. Amina's eyes widened. He wants to erase everything. The Prime Minister nodded again. He knows the file you brought. Could put him in prison for life, or worse. Amina stood, then arrest him. The Prime Minister looked away. It's not that simple. He has protection, powerful friends, even in this building. Amina stepped closer. Then why did you bring us here? He looked her straight in the eyes. Because there's one last thing your father hid. Something even more dangerous than the file. He opened a hidden compartment in the box and pulled out a piece of paper, hand-drawn a map. It showed a valley, a hidden base, no name, just a red X dot under it, written in shaky ink. Real proof. Don't trust anyone, not even them. Amina stared at it. Where is this? In Khyber region, he said. Unmarked, forgotten, but still active. Miss Fatima spoke. You want her to go there? The Prime Minister nodded. If what's hidden there still exists, it will bring down everyone involved, but you'll need help. He handed her a contact name. Captain Hadair, Special Forces. He owed your father his life. He's been waiting for your signal. Amina took the paper. I'll go. Miss Fatima looked at her. Are you sure? Amina nodded. My father died for this truth. I'm not stopping halfway. The next day, under heavy disguise, Amina and Miss Fatima were flown by a secret military chopper to a small village near the border. There in a quiet mosque courtyard, they met Captain Hadair. Tall, silent, eyes sharp like a hawk. He wore no badge, just a simple shalwar kameez and army boots. You're her? He asked softly. Yes, Amina replied. He handed her a small GPS device. We move at night. You'll need to be strong. I'm ready. That night, they trekked through dry mountains, thorny bushes, and cold winds. The land was unforgiving. Each step felt heavier than the last. Miss Fatima stumbled once. Amina helped her up. We're almost there, Hyder whispered. By dawn, they reached a narrow ridge. Below them lay a valley surrounded by hills, guarded by fences. Half buried in rock. At the center, an abandoned bunker. That's the place, Hyder said. They called it Zero Echo. It was used during Operation Black Valley. They waited until nightfall. Then Hyder led them down carefully, avoiding cameras and sensors. Amina's heart raced. She could hear her pulse in her ears. They reached the bunker door, rusted but still locked. Hyder placed a small explosive device. Stand back. The door blew open. Inside was darkness, dust, silence. They entered slowly. Miss Fatima turned on a flashlight. The beam revealed old chairs, scattered documents, broken machines. Then Amina saw a tot, the far end. A sealed locker marked critical evidence 07. She ran to it, pulled it open. Inside were tapes, dozens of them, labeled with dates and mission codes. One tape read, Black Valley, civilian encounter, 3:17 a.m. Hyder picked it up. If this has what I think it has, the world will never be the same. Suddenly a noise. Footsteps. Outside. Miss Fatima turned off the light. They found us. Hyder pulled them into a hidden crawl space behind the cabinet. Through a crack, they saw 3 armed men enter the bunker. One of them spoke into a radio. We're in. Targets might still be close. Another man picked up the open locker tape. Too late, he said. They looked around. Check everything. Burn the rest. Amina's blood turned cold. They were going to destroy everything. Hyder whispered, we need to move. Now. They waited until the men stepped deeper into the bunker, then slipped out through the rear entrance tunnel. But as they ran through the dark tunnel, a voice shouted behind them, they're escaping. Gunfire echoed. Bullets hit the walls around them. Amina ran harder than she ever had in her life. Hyder threw a flash grenade back. The tunnel filled with white light. They emerged into the open just meters from a cliffside. Hyder waved to a waiting bike hidden in the bushes. You ride, he said. Take the tapes, go to base Echo. They'll protect you. What about you? I'll delay them. No, Amina cried. I won't leave anyone behind again. Hyder smiled. That's what your father said once. He shoved the tapes into her backpack and pushed her toward the bike ride. She climbed on. Miss Fatima behind her. They rode into the darkness, through narrow mountain paths. As gunfire echoed behind them, the tapes were safe. For now, but as they sped through the rocky road, a drone above locked onto them. Red light. Tracking. Miss Fatima looked up. They're coming. Amina didn't look back. She just gripped the handles tighter and whispered to herself, I won't let you die. For nothing, Baba, I promise. The mountains roared with the sound of spinning blades. The drone above them had locked in. Its red light pulsed like a heartbeat from the sky, growing faster, more dangerous. Amina drove the dirt bike over the rocky cliff path. Miss Fatima held on tightly behind her, whispering silent prayers. Dust and stones flew under the tires as they zigzagged through the uneven trail. The old army bag full of tapes banged against Amina's back with every bump. But she didn't stop. I see the trees, she shouted, pointing ahead. They raced down into a dry forest valley, leaves brushing against their arms as they passed. Behind them, the drone's spotlight blinked, searching, scanning. But then, it paused, a beeping sound. Miss Fatima heard it first. Amina, the drone is arming something. Amina pushed the bike harder. Suddenly, boom, an explosion struck just meters behind them. Dirt and branches flew into the air. Amina screamed, swerving, hard to avoid a falling tree. The bike nearly flipped but stayed upright. They didn't stop. Minutes passed in terror, until finally, the forest thinned, and they reached a small hidden concrete checkpoint, surrounded by barbed wire and a lone flag, Pakistan's old mountain commando symbol. 2 guards appeared, rifles aimed. Who are you? Amina skidded the bike to a stop. Captain Hyder sent us. We have proof. Operation Black Valley. The guards looked at each other, then opened the gate. Inside was a small base, a satellite dish, radio tower, and old bunkers. Quiet, cold, secure. They were rushed inside. Amina handed the tapes to a soldier. Secure these. Now if they're destroyed, everything ends. A grizzled colonel came forward. He had one arm missing. You're the girl from the school video, aren't you? Yes. He looked at her with deep respect. Your father saved my life. I'll die before I let them touch you. For the next few hours, the tapes were reviewed in a sealed room. On one of them, the team saw it. Real-time video of the night attack in Black Valley. It clearly showed Colonel Aslan on the radio, ordering airstrikes even after a civilian convoy was spotted. We can't risk exposure, Aslan said on the tape. Burn it all. Say it was enemy cover. Children's voices were heard in the background, screaming, crying, and then silence. Everyone in the room froze. Miss Fatima began crying softly. Amina didn't cry. She clenched her fists. The world will hear this. The colonel nodded. This will bring down more than just Aslan, but outside the base, danger was growing. 2 agents had followed the trail. A black car sat half a mile away, watching from the shadows. One man in a headset whispered, the girl made it to Echo Base. They have the tapes. The voice on the other end was cold. Plan B, no survivors. That night, while Amina finally rested, Miss Fatima stood outside under the moonlight. She heard movement behind her. She turned. It was the one-armed colonel. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "No," she said. "Something feels wrong." He looked out over the valley. It usually is, right before a storm. At that moment, a flare shot into the sky, red burning, screaming. Alarms blared in the base. Amina woke with a gasp. Soldiers ran through the halls. Perimeter breached, possible drone strike incoming. The colonel shouted, "Get the girl to the bunker." Miss Fatima grabbed Amina's hand. "Come on." They ran. Another explosion hit near the gate. Fire lit up the night sky. In the control room, the engineer was yelling, "They're jamming our signals. We can't transmit the footage." "Try the satellite backup," someone shouted. "We don't have time." Amina turned to the colonel. "Is there any way out?" He nodded. "Old Smuggler's Tunnel, Northridge, but it's dangerous." "I don't care," she said. "Give me the tapes. I'll deliver them myself." "You won't make it alone." "I'm not alone," Miss Fatima said. "I'm with her." The colonel looked at them. "Both then go. I'll hold them." He gave Amina a small data chip. "This has everything. Use the old signal tower in Bashbar. We'll buy you time." Amina hugged him. "You're like him," he whispered. "Strong, brave, honest." Then he turned and ran toward the chaos. Through smoke and gunfire, Amina and Miss Fatima ran. The base shook from another blast. Soldiers fought back, holding the enemy at the gate. They slipped into a narrow underground tunnel, hidden by crates. It smelled of damp earth and diesel. "Careful," Fatima said. "These tunnels collapse easily." They moved quickly, the ground trembling above them. Amina held the chip tightly in her fist. They didn't speak much, just moved forward, step by step. Then, halfway through the tunnel, a loud crack. The ceiling above them shifted. "Run!" Amina shouted. Stones and wood rained down behind them. They reached the end barely. Outside was a cold, dark mountain path. Empty, silent. In the distance, city lights. Hope they found an abandoned truck on the roadside. Its keys still inside. They drove. By morning, they reached Peshawar. By found the tower, a hidden radio site used in emergencies. Inside was dusty, unused for years, but it had power. Amina handed the chip to the technician. "Upload this, send it to every news channel, every base, every embassy." He inserted the chip. It started loading. 20%, 40%, 70%. Then error. Network jammed. "No," Amina whispered. He tried again. Same result. Miss Fatima pointed at the sky. "They're still blocking us." Amina turned to her. "Then we go live." They connected a satellite phone directly to the video feed. Raw, unedited. The footage went live on emergency frequencies. In less than a minute, it was everywhere. News anchors interrupted their shows. Phones rang across ministries. TVs buzzed in cafes, homes, and army canteens. The footage shocked the nation. It showed the truth. Aslan's voice ordering the strikes. The death of civilians, the cover-up, Amina's father, refusing to sign his punishment, and a note written in blood-stained ink. "One day, my daughter will show them what honor means." Back at Echo Base, the colonel smiled through bloody lips. The enemy forces were retreating. Across the country, soldiers began resigning in protest. Protests erupted outside military offices. Azla, once untouchable, was now the most hunted man in the nation. At school, students watched the footage in silence. The same girls who once laughed at Amina's clothes were now crying. She wasn't lying. One said softly, she was brave. Later that day, a convoy of army vehicles arrived at Amina's guest house. A senior general stepped out. He saluted her. "In the name of the army and this country, I apologize." Amina stood in silence. He continued, "We want you to speak at the National Assembly, to tell the truth to everyone." Amina nodded. "I will." But as she looked toward the horizon, her eyes filled with fear, because in the shadows, not everyone was done with her yet, and Aslan had vanished. The day of the national address came like a storm waiting on the edge of calm. Outside the National Assembly building, people had already gathered. Thousands of faces, many holding placards with Amina's name and her father's photo, stood in silence. They were no longer just supporters, they were believers. Inside, the grand hall was tense. Cameras pointed at the stage, reporters whispered to each other, army officers sat stiffly, politicians glanced nervously at their phones. Amina sat quietly in the waiting chamber behind the curtains. She wore the same torn clothes she had worn on her first day at school. She refused to change them. They were part of her story, her scars, her truth. Miss Fatima gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "You ready?" Amina didn't answer right away then. She looked up and said softly, "I'm not speaking for revenge. I'm speaking because someone has to." The usher knocked. "It's time." As she stepped onto the stage, the room fell into deep silence. She stood before the microphone. No paper, no notes, just memory and fire in her heart. "My name is Amina," she said, "and I'm the daughter of a soldier." She paused. Her voice didn't tremble. It grew stronger with every word. He was a man who followed orders. But one day, he refused one order, the wrong one. The kind of order that kills innocent people and silences the truth. Gasps echoed. She continued. He was punished for saying no, but he told me one day, Amina, your silence will become your enemy. Speak, even when your voice shakes. She told them about Black Valley. The lies. The cover up. The tapes, the colonel's last stand, and the soldiers, who died for nothing. She said it all without fear, without pause, and when she finished, there was no applause, just stillness and tears. Even the army officers sat with heads bowed. A 4-star general stood from the audience, walked slowly to the stage, and saluted her, not as a soldier, but as a man honoring truth. The entire hall rose to its feet. It was no longer just about Amina, it was about what she reminded them of, honor. But not everyone clapped. In the shadows of the assembly hall, behind a thick velvet curtain, someone was watching, a man in a clean suit, sharp eyes, a small earpiece in his ear. He pressed a button. It's done, he whispered. That night, Amina and Miss Fatima stayed in the military guest house under protection. The halls were quiet. Guards outside, but something felt off. Amina sat near the window, looking at the moon. I think he's still out there, she said. Miss Fatima turned from her chair. Aslan. Amina nodded. He won't stop. Just then, a loud knock. A young soldier entered. Ma'am, the Prime Minister would like to meet you at the Parliament office. It's urgent. Miss Fatima frowned. This late? The soldier didn't blink. Yes, ma'am. We have a vehicle waiting. They followed him downstairs. A black SUV waited outside. No number plate. 2 men inside. One opened the door for Amina. Please, we'll take you safely. Amina looked at Miss Fatima. Something didn't feel right. Then she noticed the driver had no badge, no name tag, and the young soldier who led them. He wasn't from their unit. She took a step back. Miss Fatima whispered, It's a trap. But before they could react, the man beside the SUV pulled a gun. Don't scream. Get in. Amina's heart pounded. Miss Fatima did the only thing she could, pushed Amina back and kicked the gunman's knee. Run. Amina stumbled and bolted into the side corridor. Shots fired. Screams. The guest house. Guards ran toward the chaos in seconds. One of the attackers grabbed Miss Fatima and forced her into the SUV. Amina looked back just in time to see the car speed away. Back inside, the general in charge was alerted. He called Amina in. What happened? They took her, she said. They came dressed like your soldiers. The general's face turned dark. They're one of Aslan's deep agents. He still has people on the inside. Then find her, Amina said, her voice breaking for the first time. I'll do whatever it takes. The general nodded. We'll trace the vehicle, but you must remain here. You're the target. Amina looked at him and whispered, She's the only family I have left. Don't let her die. That night, Amina couldn't sleep. She stared at the photo of her father. What would you do, Baba? She asked softly. Would you wait? Or would you fight? Then, her phone buzzed. A message, blocked number. It was a photo. Miss Fatima, tied eyes covered, blood on her cheek. Then a text. Come alone, North Rail Yard. 3 a.m. No army, no tricks, or she dies. Amina stared at it for a long time, then deleted it. She didn't tell anyone. She packed a small bag, took the same old clothes, a flashlight, a wire cutter, her father's army badge. She left a note for the general. Don't follow me. If I die, at least I'll die trying. And she slipped out the side gate. The North Rail Yard was quiet, abandoned since the floods. Rusted tracks, broken lights, stray dogs. She moved silently. Her eyes searched the shadows. Then a voice came. Aslan stepped from behind an old train carriage. He looked older, bitter, but still dangerous. He smiled. You have your father's eyes, full of rebellion. Amina stared. Where is she? He waved a hand. 2 men brought Miss Fatima out, tied, gagged, weak. Let her go, Amina said. Why would I? Aslan replied. You destroyed my career, my future. You turned the nation against me. You did that yourself, Amina said. Walked closer. You're brave, but foolish. This world doesn't reward honesty. Maybe not. But I'd rather die honest than live as a coward. Aslan laughed. That's exactly what your father said. Right before he died. That was enough. Amina lunged. She grabbed the badge from her pocket and slashed his arm with its sharp edge. He shouted. Miss Fatima used the moment to kick the guard's knee. Chaos. Amina. Threw sand in another man's eyes. They ran. Shots fired. They zigzagged through the trains. Then a siren. Military trucks poured in. The general had received her note and ignored her warning. Soldiers swarmed the yard. In minutes, Aslan was surrounded. Don't move, the commander shouted. Azlan tried to run but was shot in the leg. He fell. Amina walked up to him. He looked up, blood on his face. You think you've won? He spat. She didn't answer. She just looked at him and turned away. Back at the hospital, Miss Fatima was treated for minor injuries. Amina sat beside her. Quiet, calm. You saved me, Fatima said. You saved me first. Amina replied. That night, the country finally breathed. Azlan was arrested, charged with war crimes. The military publicly admitted its mistake, and for the first time in history, a girl in tattered clothes changed the face of a nation. But Amina wasn't done yet. There was one final thing left. She stood on the parade ground of her school. the same spot where students once laughed at her now. They stood silently. The school principal invited her. To speak, she stepped forward. I don't need to wear a uniform to earn respect. I wore rags, but I carried honor. My father gave it to me. Now I give it to you. Behind her, soldiers formed a line. Among them, one man stepped forward, a 4-star general. He stood straight. Then he saluted her. The crowd gasped. He shouted, "In the name of every soldier who serves with heart, we stand at attention for you." And every soldier followed. 12 rows of medals saluted a girl in rags. The sun rose quietly over the capital city, but Amina's heart carried a different kind of weight. Victory had come at a high cost. Miss Fatima was recovering, Aslan was behind bars, and the truth had finally reached the world. Yet something inside her whispered that it wasn't over. Back at the military guest house, the general invited Amina for breakfast. She wore the same faded scarf her father gave her on his last birthday. It still smelled of old papers and the oil from his boots. The general smiled warmly. You've done something no soldier in our history has ever done. You made the truth stronger than fear. Amina sat, quiet. Truth doesn't end enemies, it only exposes them. He nodded. Wise words for someone so young. Then he handed her a sealed file. What's this? She asked. Something out. Investigators found inside Aslan's private vault. He was working with someone, a ghost inside our own system. Amina opened the file. Inside were old photographs, letters, a transaction sheet and a name. She froze. Her lips trembled. No, it can't be. The name was Colonel Tariq Roff, her father's closest friend, a man she had once called uncle. Flashbacks crashed through her mind. Colonel Tariq, smiling with her father, giving her candy, standing at her father's funeral, saying, "Your father was the best of us." Amina's eyes filled with tears. Are you sure this is real? She asked. The general nodded. The payment trail is clear. He was feeding Aslan information, and he signed the order that led to your father's mission being labeled rogue. Amina clutched the file tightly. She felt the room grow smaller. The floor under her felt like glass. I want to see him, she whispered. That afternoon, under strict protection, she was taken to the intelligence wing. Colonel Tariq was still active, still wearing his uniform, and still respected. When she entered the room, he stood to greet her. Amina, you've grown into a lioness. I'm proud. She threw the file on the table. He froze. His smile faded, his hands dropped. You betrayed him, she said, voice shaking. He trusted you. He wrote letters to you from the base. And all that time you were helping the man who destroyed him. Colonel Tariq didn't answer. She stepped closer. Why? He looked away. You don't understand how the world works. We don't always get to choose the clean side. Sometimes, to protect the bigger picture, we do the smaller wrongs. Amina's voice cracked. There is no bigger picture when your best friend dies for a lie. He lowered his eyes. They were going to shut down our weapons program. Aslan promised. Influence, power, and you sold your soul. She interrupted. Amina turned and walked away without looking back. That night, she couldn't sleep. Her heart felt heavier than ever before. It wasn't just about the enemy anymore. It was about betrayal from the inside, from people she once trusted. She sat with Miss Fatima at the hospital window. He was like an uncle to me, she said. He held my hand at Baba's funeral. Miss Fatima took a deep breath. Sometimes, betrayal doesn't come from strangers. It comes from people too weak to resist power. Amina looked up. What if there are more like him? Hidden behind medals, behind promises. Miss Fatima nodded. Then we shine more light. The next morning, news of Colonel Tariq's suspension broke across all channels. The file Amina handed over became public record. For the first time, the military leadership admitted a network of internal betrayal had existed. But something else happened to a secret journalist, calling himself Falcon, leaked a private audio. It was a conversation between two men. One voice was clearly Aslan's, the other, it wasn't Colonel Tariq, it was the general, the very man who had stood beside Amina. In the clip, the general said, "Let the girl speak, it will clean our face. Then we handle her quietly." The nation erupted. Amina's face went pale as she listened to the tape in the military conference room. She turned to the officers. Is this real? The senior investigator nodded grimly. It matches his voice pattern. The general may have used you. Miss Fatima, now seated in a wheelchair, gripped Amina's hand. He gave you a stage so the public would trust him again. But he never planned to let you stay in the spotlight. Amina stood. Her body was trembling. He was waiting for me to step down quietly. But I won't. Later that day, Amina held a live press conference. No script. Just her truth. She played the leaked tape for the world. Then she looked directly into the camera. I believed we had one. But snakes wear uniforms too. And I won't stop until every one of them is exposed. The nation held its breath. Some cheered, some feared, and the army divided. That evening, a black car arrived at the military guest house. A young officer stepped out. I have orders. Amina is to be relocated to the intelligence barracks for her own safety. Miss Fatima looked at the man who gave the order. Classified, he replied. But Amina had already guessed. The general, he was going to silence her this time. Not with lies, but by locking her away under protection. She made a choice. No, she said. The officer frowned. Excuse me? I refuse. You can't. I just did. Within hours, social media exploded. Hashtag let her speak #stand with Amina. Thousands gathered outside her guest house. She waved from the balcony. The people shouted her name. Soldiers from various ranks stood down from the general's command. Many refused to carry out the transfer order. The army itself was splitting. That night, the general released a statement. He denied the audio, said it was fake, but forensic experts confirmed its authenticity. His empire was falling. He made one last move. He escaped, disappeared into the mountains with a private security unit, loyal only to him. A nationwide manhunt began. Back at the intelligence wing, a new file landed on Amina's desk. It had no cover name, just one label: Black Root Protocol. Miss Fatima read over her shoulder. What's this? Amina opened the first page. Her hands went cold. The Black Root Protocol was a secret operation. It was signed by both Aslan and the general. It listed over a dozen disappearances. Officers who had tried to expose the truth. Each death had been staged: accidents, heart attacks, training failures. And at the bottom of the list, Major Taha Remen, her father. He wasn't just sacrificed in a messy mission. He was targeted. Amina's voice cracked. They didn't just abandon him. They planned it. Miss Fatima held her close. I told you, child, she whispered. The truth has layers. As they read deeper into the file, they found another shocking revelation. Amina herself was listed, codename Sparrow. Next to her name. To be silenced if media traction becomes uncontrollable. The threat was still alive. Just then, the door burst open. A young officer ran in. We found him, he shouted, the general. He's hiding in the North Mountain barracks. He has over 40 armed men. The room turned cold. Amina stood. Miss Fatima looked at her. You don't have to go. But Amina shook her head. They plan to silence me. Now it's time I silence their lies for good. The cold mountain air bit sharply at Amina's face as she stood at the edge of the forest. Behind her, a small team of soldiers gathered quietly, waiting for her command. Their faces were grim, tired, but full of determination. This mission was unlike any other they had faced. It was personal. It was justice. Amina's heart pounded as she looked at the steep trail leading up to the North Mountain Barracks, the last known hideout of the rogue general who had betrayed the country, her family, and her trust. Every step forward meant facing the man who had tried to silence her forever. Captain Hadair stood beside her, checking his gear. Are you ready? Amina nodded. No, going back now. The group moved silently through the thick woods, shadows stretching long beneath the canopy. The only sounds were the crunch of leaves and the distant call of an eagle. Every rustle made Amina's nerves tighten. Every shadow seemed to hide a danger. They reached the foot of the barracks just as the sun began to set, casting the mountains in a fiery glow. The compound was surrounded by tall fences, watchtowers, and armed guards. But the team had the advantage of surprise. Using a secret path that Captain Hadair's contacts had discovered, they slipped inside the perimeter, avoiding patrols and surveillance cameras. Amina's hands trembled slightly, but her eyes were steadied. Inside the main building, the air was thick with tension. The general's voice echoed in her memory, cold and cruel. She had to be strong. For her father, for Miss Fatima, for everyone who believed in the truth. Suddenly, footsteps approached. Amina ducked into a dark corner. Two men passed by, talking quietly. We can't hold out much longer, one said. The investigation is closing in. The girl and her friends are relentless. The other laughed bitterly. Let them come. We're ready. Amina's jaw clenched. She motioned to her team to get into position. They stormed the room. Chaos erupted. Gunfire echoed. Amina led the charge, her voice cutting through the noise. For the truth, for justice. Bullets flew. Soldiers fell on both sides. In the midst of the fight, Amina spotted the general trying to escape through a side door. She ran after him, heart racing. He turned, gun raised. Stay back, girl, he snarled. You don't know what you're doing. I know exactly what I'm doing, she replied, before he could fire. Captain Hadair tackled him to the ground. The fight was over. Back at the base, the general was cuffed and taken away. He glared at Amina with pure hatred. You may have won this battle, but the war isn't over, he spat. Amina looked at him steadily. The war for truth never ends, she said, and I will fight it every day. Days later, in a secure room, Amina sat with investigators, watching the final files on the Black Root Protocol. The evidence was overwhelming, dozens of officers exposed, corruption rooted out, and justice being served. She felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Miss Fatima entered, smiling weakly. You did it, she said softly. Amina smiled back. We did it. A nation began to heal. Soldiers saluted her not just for her courage, but for her heart. She had walked from tattered clothes to standing before a general. And more than that, she had changed a country. But deep inside, Amina knew. Her journey was just beginning. The truth was fragile, but her spirit was unbreakable. The victory felt like a distant dream. As Amina walked through the crowded streets of Islamabad, the cheers and praises she once heard had faded into whispers and cautious glances. The country was healing, but the wounds beneath ran deep. Her father's name was cleared. The corrupt general was behind bars, and the truth was out. Yet a shadow lingered, one that threatened to pull her back into darkness. At the university where Amina had returned to continue her studies, she noticed strange looks. Some students avoided her, while others whispered behind her back. Even some professors seemed hesitant. One afternoon, as she left the campus library, a group of students blocked her path. "Why do you still wear those ragged clothes?" One sneered. "Don't you have anything better?" Another added. "You think you're a hero? You're just a pawn." Amina's heart sank. The same laughter, the same mockery she had endured as a child was creeping back. But this time it felt colder, more calculated. Miss Fatima, who had come with her to the university, noticed the tension. "That's because the truth unsettles people," she said. "Some want to forget, some want to fight." Amina clenched her fists. "I thought winning would change everything." "It changes some things," Miss Fatima replied, "but not all. The powerful always find a way." That night, Amina received a mysterious letter slipped under her door. No sender, no signature. Just one sentence. "You have stirred a hornet's nest. Watch your back." Fear crept into her chest. The next morning, while walking to class, a shadow followed her. A man in a dark coat, his face hidden under a hat, kept his distance but never lost sight. She quickened her pace, heart pounding. When she reached the university gates, she turned sharply, but he was gone. At home, she told Miss Fatima everything. "We can't hide," Amina said. "They want to scare me." Fatima nodded. "Then we fight smarter." Together, they began to document every strange call, every suspicious meeting, every threat. They reached out to journalists, activists, and even some honest officers who still believed in justice. Amina's story became more than personal. It was now a symbol of courage in the face of unseen enemies. One evening, as they worked late, in the guest house, the power suddenly went out. The room plunged into darkness. Amina's phone buzzed. A message. Last warning. Suddenly the door creaked. Footsteps, heavy boots. Someone was coming. Amina held her breath. Miss Fatima grabbed a flashlight. The door swung open. A man stepped inside. It was Colonel Tariq. Amina's heart stopped. "How?" she whispered. Tariq smiled thinly. "We have unfinished business, Amina. You think you know the truth. You only know what they want you to see." He pulled out a folder. "Your father was part of something bigger, something dangerous." Amina stared with Tariq leaned closer. "This isn't just about betrayal or corruption. There are forces inside and outside this country that want to control everything. Your father tried to stop them." Amina felt the room spin. Tariq's single quotes eyes were cold. "Join me," he said. "Help me finish what he started." Amina looked at Miss Fatima. The room was silent. She shook her head. "No," she said firmly. "I fight for truth, not lies." Tariq laughed. "You don't have a choice." Before she could react, he pressed a button. The door locked. The power stayed off. The locked door echoed with Tariq's cold laughter. The room was dark, the silence broken only by the faint hum of the emergency lights flickering overhead. Amina's heart pounded like a drum. She could feel Miss Fatima's trembling hand gripping hers. There was no escape, no rescue in sight. The sharp edge of betrayal inches away. Tariq paced slowly, his eyes gleaming with a dangerous mix of anger and calculation. "You don't understand, Amina. This isn't personal. It's bigger than all of us. Your father died because he stood in the way of a powerful game, one that controls nations, armies, even truth itself." Amina swallowed hard. "Then why come to me? Why offer a chance?" "Because you're the last hope," Tariq said quietly. "The only one who can finish what your father started. Join me, and we can rebuild this country, clean it from the rot." Her mind raced. Could she trust the man who betrayed her family? Could she accept an offer born in shadows? Miss Fatima squeezed her hand. "Remember who you are, Amina." Her voice was steady. "I don't join shadows. I fight the darkness with light." Tariq smiled sadly. "Then you leave me no choice." Suddenly, the door burst open. Soldiers swarmed in. Guns raised. Captain Hayter and the general from the army, now a changed man, stood behind them. "Step away from the girls." Tariq, the general ordered. Tariq's face twisted in rage, but he surrendered. The nightmare was over. In the days that followed, Tariq's web of lies unraveled. The powerful secret groups he worked with were exposed. The nation shuddered under the weight of hidden truths. Finally revealed. Amina's voice echoed through the media, stronger than ever. She spoke not just as the girl in tattered clothes, but as a symbol of courage and hope. At her father's grave, Amina knelt. "I walked from shame to honor," she whispered, "because I believed, because I fought, because I refused to be silent." The general saluted beside her. "We all stand at attention for you, Amina," he said softly. Back at school, the students who once laughed now looked at her with respect. She no longer wore rags, but her spirit remained unbroken and true. Her journey was not just about one girl or one family. It was about a nation learning to face its past and rise stronger. And as the sun set over the mountains, Amina smiled. Story had become a beacon, a story of truth, of bravery, of hope.